I used to be getting my PhD in history, and I was studying fascism, um, mainly the post-World War II fascist diaspora. So basically, a lot of Nazis and other fascists sort of spread out, fled from Germany and Italy and such, and spread out all over the world and started spreading their nonsense elsewhere. But this particular, there is a lot of disagreement amongst academics about what fascism actually is. You'd be very hard pressed to find an exact definition, because there are a lot of different variations, and that's kind of why it's a hard term to pin down. However, there is one gentleman, his name is Umberto Eco. For anyone from Italy, and I'm pretty sure there's someone here, you may know about Umberto Eco. Um, he wrote he wrote a document called Fascism, where he sort of outlined what the main points of fascism are. Um, Shut. Hello. What was your thesis about? Your grad thesis? So my thesis was I early on studied fascism, and my thesis ended up being called "The Development of Systems of Social Control in the United States," in the modern United States. So basically, how government, corporations, and things like that sort of conspired, not really conspired. A lot of times it was done independently of each other to produce a scenario where people were obedient to them and dissent was suppressed and sort of the things like that. Okay. Um, and a lot of that had to do with a lot of learning about fascism and things like that. Okay. Okay. So Umberto Eco, he made this, and he made a list of yeah, I'm sure every European does. Winterlinde. Many Europeans probably know who Umberto Eco is. Okay, he made this list of the traits of fascism, and I thought we could go through it together. And as I'm going through it, it's written in kind of an academic way, but I will sort of translate it for you, and then let's take a look at modern day America, shall we? Let's see if we think that Umberto Eco's fascism would apply to what we're seeing going on in the modern day United States. So, first one here, okay? If I can just highlight here so you can see what I'm looking at. Number one, here we go, okay? The first feature of fascism is the cult of tradition. The cult of tradition. Um, so, the idea that tradition is more important than sort of anything else, okay? But it's also he goes on to say here that it has to be synchronistic, which means it takes traditions from multiple different sources and kind of shoves them together to make a single tradition. All right. So, for example, the Nazis, they kind of mixed weird occult pagan beliefs, um, and along with some Christianity, not most of Christianity, but they mixed some of that together along with a weird obsession with science and technology. It was sort of a mixture of all these things. So, do we see anything going on today that might be a cult of tradition when it comes to politics? Anyone want to throw that out there? Because I can tell you one. There's been a lot of, especially amongst evangelical Christians, a lot of mixing of church and state with Christian things. Okay, I don't even know if it really is Christianity. That is one thing we've seen a lot of. The whole phrase of "Make America Great Again." That's sort of a return to tradition, right? Now, personally, I'm not sure when he's referring to. Was it during segregation? Was it during slavery? Was it when women had no rights to vote? Was it when Native Americans were being slaughtered? My point is, okay, is that returning to tradition, this idea of tradition is super important. This is the way the United States is. It's the way it's always been, and we need to protect it. Okay, trad wives. Oh, thank you, Catherine Clark. Yes, that trad wives, 100%. Okay. Also, the manosphere, the obsession with masculinity and the need to return to more traditional masculinity. Okay, um, absolutely. All right. Very much in the sphere of tradition. Okay, so that is the first one we got here. So the cult of tradition. So we see some of that in our society. Christian nationalism, 100% Grace, 100%. Okay. Very much so. Okay. Oh, yes. That one guy from the debate, how he said the original stock of Americans. Your excellent point. Is it just me or is it gross? I think someone mentioned in the comments to that video, the word stock is gross. It's like a breeding program, right? Like we're breeding human beings or something, which by the way, the Nazis tried to do. Yeah, so kind of gross. Yeah, return to tradition, right? Or how that one guy said that we are the Native Americans, right? We were the ones who are native to here. And yeah, that Jubilee video was very hard to watch. Trust me, I had to sit through it, so I know. Okay. Um, okay, so let's go on here. So the return to tradition. So next one we got here, the rejection of modernism. Rejection of modernism. What does that mean? Okay. So basically, modernism is, well, it's complicated. But so I'll read you what he says. Both fascists and Nazis worship technology, while traditionalist thinkers usually reject it as a negation of traditional spiritual values. Um, However, even though Nazism was proud of its industrial achievements, its praise of modernism was only the surface of an ideology based off blood and earth. Okay, so the idea of modernism is that they believe themselves to be like futuristic and forward thinking and reviving the nation, right? They will often think that, but at the same time, as Umberto Eco said, they reject like the Enlightenment. They reject um, things that like science a lot of the time. So it's very selective, but they typically reject modernism. They don't like modern art. They don't like modern conceptions about race. They don't like modern conceptions about equality. They don't like modern conceptions, like I said, a lot of times about science, although they really were into tech. Kind of a complete, yeah. Yo, big Braden. Yeah, Braden. Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. I totally agree. Like Neanderthals, right? Now, I don't mean to insult anyone, of course. I'm a very friendly, kind person, but yes, Neanderthals, right? Okay. Yeah. And like my dad said, that's kind of an insult to Neanderthals because we know now that Neanderthals weren't nearly as, I guess, primitive as we used to think they were. That's probably not an appropriate word anymore. Regardless, they are. Thank you. Vaccine denialism. Was it death died today? 100% vaccine denialism. Um, okay. Uh, Brum moment. Yes, I have studied the aesthetics of fascism. Correct. So this is another great point. They reject modernism, but they typically blend modern sort of futuristic art styles in with classical art styles. Okay. Let me show you all something. Let me show you an image here. So let me show you. See here. Right dog. Let's take a look here. The old one. Oh, I should say fine. Nazis. Gosh, the FBI is probably going to be watching my. I don't want to do. Okay, so let me show you. Here's an image for you. Okay, you can see it here on the right. It's because it's right above my head at that point. Okay, you can see that it's has very traditional sort of aesthetics. Like this is very Roman-esque, like this falcon, eagle on top of a wreath with a swastika in it. At the same time, it's not quite classical, right? It has sort of a modern-esque look to it, like it's a lot of energy and there's this light coming out of it. Okay, it's sort of a blending of the modern and the sort of traditional classical way of doing things. Okay. So let's go. So again, they reject modernism. Let's go back through it. There's a cult of tradition. They reject modernism. Here we go. This you all will probably recognize this right away, and this is one of my favorite ones. This is one of my favorite ones, by the way. Irrationalism. Irrationalism also depends on action for action's sake. action for action's sake. So, fascists tend to get into government and then do a lot of stuff. They're constantly doing stuff. Is that stuff yeah, okay, Alan, yeah, abolishing the Department of Education, social safety nets, yeah, okay, that is a rejection of the modern to some extent. Um, uh, and here's another thing, okay? So, action for action's sake, okay? Oh my god, okay, I just keep getting distracted by these great chat comments here. Robert Kennedy, yeah, all right. Irrationalism, okay. Denial of reality, rejection of the Enlightenment. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so Republicans denying science, okay? And as a sort of an addendum to that, okay, action for action's sake. Fascists do a lot of stuff when they get into office. A lot of times when fascist governments rise, it rises in the context of a country where people don't think the government is effective anymore. So in Italy, there was a lot of chaos going on. The government seemed sort of ineffective to the average person. In Germany, the Weimar Republic, although it had some great traits and stuff to it, it was perceived as being ineffectual. And with the Great Depression, that made it even worse. So what ends up happening is people in a country just want the government to do something. Okay? Just do it. Just do something. All right? And a lot of times, what ends up happening is when fascists take over, they do a bunch of stuff. Now, does the stuff they do actually help people? Debatable. All right. I'm sure you can all think of examples. Very debatable. Uh, yeah. Okay. Uh, Trump has done a bunch of stuff. He really he has. He's done a bunch of executive orders, done a bunch of stuff, gotten a lot of stuff done, as they say. The content doesn't matter so much to fascists, right? What matters is that they're doing stuff because the last government, the corrupt government, didn't do anything, right? Or was perceived as not doing anything. So, action for action's sake. And I like how Umberto Eco he phrases this. He says, action being beautiful in itself, it must be taken before or without any previous reflection. Thinking is a form of emasculation. That is so true amongst fascists, okay? Thinking is viewed as a feminine trait. Well, okay, and is demasculate, demasculating, okay, according to fascists. So you just act, take the action, okay? Um, Maybe not the best thing to do for a country, right? If you just take actions willy-nilly, you're going to cause some problems. Yeah, I know. That is it's a feminine trait, right? That according to fascists, thinking is effeminate. Now this is it's a nonsense debate, right? They view feminine traits as being inferior to masculine traits. Obviously, you're going to see, I mean, obviously for them, obviously, okay? So you're going to see later on in this list that they talk about masculinity and how that connects to fascism, okay? So action for action's sake. Um, and and I'm going to keep reading this section because this is my favorite section. Like I said, he goes on to say, therefore, culture is suspect insofar as it is identified with critical attitudes. So fascists don't like a society if it questions, literally, if it questions things, if it's critical about the world around it. Okay, if it does anything that questions what's going on in the government, what the government's doing, it does not like critical thinking. It views that as emasculating and making you less masculine. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the fascists were literally kind of just thugs. Like they would go around beating up people, especially in Nazi Germany and in Italy, they would form these paramilitaries called Freikorps, and they would get into these groups of guys like, yeah, and then they would go out into the street and beat up another group of guys, and they would just fist fight all the time. And you don't think, okay, yeah, it is very contradictory, but you don't think, right? It's not about thinking, it's about go and fight, take action, okay? What did we see on January 6th, folks? Yeah, ICE, okay. You just go out. Muted my mic there for a second. You can ignore that. Yes, ICE. Have we noticed that ICE has almost been dressing like paramilitaries and covering their faces and such? It's disturbing. So, okay. Yes. So let's go on here. That is distrust of the intellectual world has always been a symptom of fascism. As a matter of, he has a great quote in here. So Hermann Goering, who was one of the top sort of Nazi people in Hitler's government, he famously said, "When I hear of culture, I reach for my gun." Wow. So yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go on to the next one. It says here, and I think I sort of mentioned this already. No faith, no syncretic faith, can withstand analytical criticism. The critical spirit makes distinctions, and to distinguish is a sign of modernism. In modern culture, the scientific community praises disagreement as a way to improve knowledge, but for fascism, disagreement is treason. So, this is, you can see, okay? They don't like any sort of critical thinking. They don't like any sort of reflection on anything. Oh, folks, don't worry. Don't get into a fight with Foucault's bathhouse. I say that because Foucault's bathhouse clearly is questioning his own masculinity and such. So we really ought to feel some empathy for him. Um, yeah, so it's okay. We don't need to. We don't need to. Thank you for standing up for me. Really, it's okay. But I'm not. I'm not affected by it at all. I just feel bad for the guy. Um, anyway, so moving on. Okay, critical theory is sort of about. So again, they can't stand any sort of criticism. Criticism is not allowed in fascism. Okay. What are we seeing with Trump, folks? All right, let's go on here. Uh, Disagreement is a sign of diversity. Okay. They do not like diversity. Uh, so yeah. Um, uh, yeah. That makes sense, right? I mean, I don't even know what else to add to that. We see that all around us, don't we? Um, so Eco had a novel with Foucault as the main character. Yeah, that's true. He did. So again, disagreement is a sign of diversity. We can't even have disagreement because that adds to diversity. And if there's one thing fascism loves, it's uniformity. I make a joke with my students that you can imagine if the Nazis would have like won the war and kind of created this society that they wanted, like the first generation would have been standing there, hiling Hitler or whatever in perfectly straight lines. And then the next generation, their backs may have been slumped a little bit more. And then the third generation, they probably couldn't even lift their arms because of all the inbreeding. But anyway, the whole point here is you can't really have dissent. Okay. So you can see that, all right? Okay. You can't have diversity. Fascism, the next one here, derives from individual or social frustrations. What do we think about that? So, in every time a fascist sort of society has risen up, um, it has been in a circumstance where the country where it rise up in is in some kind of distress. Germany had just lost a major war. The Great Depression happened. Italy was having all kinds of internal issues. Spain was having all kinds of internal issues. So, what do we think about the 2008 financial crisis? Do we see how some of the results of that may have led to Trumpism. And there's more to it than that. Other things happened as well. But on top of that, we admittedly have a pretty corrupt political system. That's not me saying that, though I am saying it. All sorts of experts agree. People feel disenchanted with the government. Okay. They feel very disenchanted with the government. They feel disenchanted with the United States in a lot of ways. A lot of people don't feel like they live in that, they don't feel that United States represents them anymore. Okay. Whether it's right or not. Okay. A lot of MAGA, the right wing and stuff, feel social frustration. They feel socially isolated. A lot of them are also, to be honest, sexually frustrated, which is why there's a big, incel movement and such. Okay. So we can see how our scenario kind of may have helped fascism along. Okay. Um, So this is why, and just to read what Umberto Eco says, this is why one of the most typical features of the historical fascism was the appeal to a frustrated middle class, a class suffering from an economic crisis or feelings of political humiliation, and frightened by the pressure of lower social groups. Okay, folks, we're going to have to use a teacher move here, and we are going to, let's see here. How do I do this? Okay. Well, I'm trying to delete chats here. Like in a classroom, it's easy. You just get after a kid. But if I have a teenager in the chat who is being disruptive, I'll just have to figure out how to ban. Okay. Anyway, so we by the by the way, on a side note, when it comes to for posting sort of trolling type things, the Nazis love trolling. They made it really hard for the German government to function because they would constantly be trolling other people in the legislature, made it really hard to get anything done. So it is kind of funny how there's a lot. The troll culture is very similar to fascist culture in a lot of way. It's just it's interesting about disruption and such. Okay, so let's go on here. So again, class. Frustrated middle class, feelings of uncertainty. All right, let's take a look. People who feel deprived of a clear social identity, fascism says that their only privilege is the most common one, to be born in the same country. So when you get a society where people are kind of feeling disconnect, Bettina, thank you. On it, yeah, literally. Literally, let's see here. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. How do I click on it and then you can maybe I want to come up with okay. Report. All right. There we go. I think that did it. Maybe I don't know. We'll find out. I'm still trying to get used to this crap. Okay. So all right. No, okay. I'm exaggerating. Obviously, not all the trolls are fascists, but I should say that fascists used kind of trolling tactics, which is super interesting. But anyway, okay. So fascism provides identity to people who feel that they have lost their identity. Now, for people who are in the they're white people in this country, a lot of white people. Okay. Not including myself, okay? So I'm not included in this. If you were to ask them in a survey, they would say that they feel racism against white people is at an all-time high and they no longer feel connected to their country and things like that. Whether that's true or not, we can debate that. I don't think it is. Regardless, there are a lot of people who feel that they've lost their social identity. There's a lot of men's rights movements who try to, which are hateful in a lot of ways. They also try to rebuild, masculinity and things like that because they feel disconnected from their masculinity. They feel disconnected from their perception of manhood. Okay, there is a lot of things going on, like Christians. A lot of Christians feel that Christianity is under attack, okay, whether or not it is. They feel deprived of their social identities. So fascism sort of overcomes that by uniting everyone by saying, well, all of these other divisions don't matter. Class divisions don't matter. You know, all these other divisions don't matter. What matters is that we are one nation. Okay, we are one nation. So that is, you can see that, right? And then it makes it easier. Now, weirdly enough, we haven't seen this as much with Trump. At one point, we haven't seen as much. Typically, what fascists will do is they will be like, we are one nation, only we matter. And then they will use outside nations as sort of primary enemies. Has Trump done that a little bit? Yes. But it was a lot more severe in Nazi Germany and Italy when you kind of turn against other nations. It really was. I mean, look at what Hitler did and such. Regardless, we do see some of that. All right. Okay. Um, so here we go. This next part here I think is great. Oh, let me add once again, I'm still trying to get used to this sort of thing. You guys, we have a after we get 10 super chats, I will put on my jester hat for the rest of the stream because self-humiliation is lovely. So if you want to send a super chat, I'd highly appreciate it. If not, not the end of the world. I know the economic situation of the country is not great for a lot of people, so I would not be upset at all if you decide not to send a super chat. Regardless, I would love some super chats. That'd be fantastic. I could then put on that hat for anyone who's interested. Okay, so let's move on to this next bit here. So fascist followers, right, must feel humiliated by the ostentatious wealth and force of their enemies. Okay. When I was a boy, I was taught to think of Englishmen as a five-meal people. They ate more frequently than the poor but sober Italians. Okay. Um, However, followers must be convinced uh, they can overwhelm their enemies. This is a very important point, and I'm going to say it. Okay, listen very carefully, and I'm just going to say exactly what he says. The enemies of fascism are at the same time too strong and too weak. So I want you to think about this. When MAGA or Trump talks about trans people, they talk about them as if they are this powerful threat that is overcoming everything, right? They are taking over, schools. They're taking over. They are an overwhelming, powerful threat. At the same time, they will diminish trans people and make them out to be weak and mentally ill. And, you see what I'm saying here, right? So that is a very interesting part of fascism. The enemies of fascism are almost always, or like the targets of fascism, always presented as being too strong and too weak at the same time. Can we think of any other examples of that? Any other examples when fascism, or in modern day America, where fascism is viewed as too weak and too strong at the same time? I get back to the bottom of this. Here we go. Okay. Oh, here we go. Oh, sorry, my chat froze briefly. Here we go. Um, yeah, though that's fantastic. Yeah, okay, well, let me go through some of these. I guess my chat took a bit to update here. Yeah, I totally agree. I will probably eventually get some mods, but very new to it, so I will try to do that. On men's right people, get on my nerves so much. Big Brain, I feel you there. Okay. Um, Interesting. I don't think I've heard of. Oh, Mark Andreessen. I do know him. Okay. Yes. Yeah, you're right, Grace. Um, Yeah, the Andrew Tate thing is very much connected to this. He was very much a men's manosphere guy, extremely misogynistic. Uh, yeah, very much so. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. You caught your 14-year-old brother watching Nick Fuentes. For those who don't know, Nick Fuentes is an avowed Nazi. He's openly a Nazi. Um, Yeah. Oh no. Oh, what's our count on super chat so far? Right now, we got 2. You know what? I feel like it should be more than that. But it says we have 2. Maybe it's taking a bit to update. 6, I believe. So we're got. You know what? I may have made a setting or something wrong there. So I will go through and count eventually, and then I'll just put on the hat if we get there. They're both weak enough. So here we got Big Braden again. To not be able to serve in the army, but strong enough to not be allowed in sports. Yeah. Do you see how this is contradictory? Someone else said in the chat a while back, please call yourself out. I can't remember who said it. Fascism is full of contradictions. 100% a contradiction. Okay. Um, Here we go. Tyler Dow, love your channel, and I love the analysis from the teacher's perspective. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much. Cat ladies. Okay, I feel they do it with their liberal Marxist stuff a bit too. Liberal Marxist stuff. I'm not sure what you're referring to. That's okay though. Liberal snowflake. There you go. Right. By the way, the thing about the phrase "liberal snowflake" is hilarious, right? Because again, they always say that the left and stuff is a threat. That they're taking over the schools, or doing it, but they're snowflakes and they're emotional and they're pathetic. But okay, we see that contradiction. Okay. Um, yeah, I think the count's wrong too, Braden. Your timer timed out and stopped counting super chats. Okay. Then, folks, how about this? I believe you when you say there's been 7. Once we get 3 more, I'll put on the hat, okay? And then I'll get better at this in the future. Okay. All right. Lay Lane. Oh, yeah. The count is only counting real chat. Oh, I see what you're saying. That makes sense. Okay. Anytime someone unironically uses simp lib cuck beta male as an insult in 2025, I just laugh because it feels like satirical at this point. Yeah. Oh, I agree. Right. Um, why do we? Okay. Why is it you do? You think this is a good question, London? Why do you? Or I haven't read the whole thing, so I don't know yet. But I'll let you know. Why do you think we see a rise in radical left movements like communism when far right movements are also rising? Okay. Thank you, London. Thank you so much. You gave me this opportunity. When you have a society that is frustrated, struggling economically, struggling socially, this is exactly what happens. You see a polarization of the political spectrum. So in Weimar Germany, before the Nazis took over, there wasn't just a rise in the far right. There was a massive rise in the far left. The communists started doing very well in elections because people in the middle, okay, start losing faith with the system. So they start turning to more radical ideologies that seek to get rid of the current system or change it. So you see this everywhere. And a lot of times fascism, yeah, Big Braden, you're right. The Spanish Civil War, exact same way. That one got extremely violent. So you typically see a political polarization. So the Great Depression caused a political um, polarization going on, and you saw it after 2008, the financial crisis, and COVID made it worse. Okay, there was a massive political polarization because people started losing faith in the economic system and the government system, things like that. And so you start seeing a rise in the far left and the far right. Now then, this may not be a popular position I'm taking, and I know that it might not be the yeah. However, it is true historically. The way to combat fascism is not to stick in the center. All right? Because if people lose faith in a political system and you stick in the center, the people aren't going to aren't going to support you. Okay. What you need to do is advocate for major reforms and changes. I'm not saying you need to completely overthrow a system of government, but you better make some reforms because the rise of fascism is a warning sign. Okay. It's a warning sign that something is going wrong in the society. And I suspect that in America, one of the big issues is that the wealth inequality is a massive problem. Another massive problem here, okay, is the economy just isn't good for everyone. I think before COVID, something like 40%. of Americans had $400 or less in an account for an emergency. There are some big economic problems. People are feeling left out. The minimum wage doesn't go up. Um, we work more in America than most other countries do with less time off. Our healthcare system, I can go on and on. The way to get people back to supporting the system is not to keep supporting the system and trying to go back to the way things were before the fascism. It is to change the system in a way that's good for everyone. Okay. I am curious to hear what you all um, say about that. I know that is not a popular position. I say that because, um, I'm a bit more left than I think than most people. Okay, or than in the America, but Democrats and Republicans are very loyal to their sides. Okay, and yes, Democrats are too. So I could go on a rant criticizing the Democratic Party for their passiveness in the face of the rise of Trump and stuff, for their inability to diverge from the center. But I know that that'll probably upset some people. Okay, uh, just be aware. Okay, historically, that is how you combat fascism. You have to make the society fairer, make people feel more included, change the way things are. Okay, good. I see some good. Um, Thank you. Yes, real life cat DJ. Love your username here. Um, yeah, you have to fight. You can't just capitulate. And you also can't just stand back and say, "Oh, we'll let the fascists embarrass themselves and then we'll come in and save the day." They'll destroy it, they'll destroy their image themselves, which is what Democratic leadership was saying. Okay? You need to take active action to fight back. Okay? Yeah. Thank you, Sir Bartholomew. Isn't it JFK who said, when peaceful revolution becomes impossible, violent revolution becomes inevitable? Yes, that is the problem. Okay. It's a canary in the coal mine. Fascism is a canary in the coal mine. The Weimar Republic was not able to fix its problems in time to stop fascism. Um, the I could go on. Okay. We need to be able to fix those problems. And it's not going to be easy because there are tons of things standing in the way of reform. Campaign corruption, or political campaign corruption, funding corruption. There's tons of things in the way, but that's what we need to do. Okay. And I want, for those of you who may, um, so I want to, so for the people who say we just need to sort of get past Trump and get back to the way things were, if you don't change the fundamental issues with the country that created Trump, Trump is just serving as an example for the next person to do the same thing. And every time we let someone do what Trump does, it makes the next person better at doing it because lessons are learned. So, unless we want to keep having this happen where we might have 4 years where there isn't a fascist in charge, and then 4 years where there's another fascist in charge over and over again until someone does not leave office, we need to change. We need to fix the problem that's creating it. Okay. We can't just say, well, just vote on the other party and things will be better. No, we need to vote on the other party, and then that other party needs to make changes that stop the problem. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'm done. I'm off my soapbox here. Let's go on now. Um, okay. Oh, I agree. We do need universal health care. It's insane that we don't have it. Every other wealthy country at the same level the United States has it. They pay less for their health care, and it's higher quality care than in the United States. I could go on and on and on. So anyway, uh, okay. Oh, you're right. It is far. You're okay. So, Big Braden, you're right. Yeah, in America, universal healthcare is viewed as far left. Although, what's funny is if you do surveys, the majority of Americans support it. So, I guess that means majority of Americans are far left. But whatever the case may be, that's what it's viewed as. Is viewed as being far left, even though it is sort of a centrist idea in most other countries. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um, let's go on here. Let's go back to here. So I know I got a bit off track there, but it's always good to talk about how to combat fascism. All right. So here we go. We got to ostentatio. Okay, here we go. For fascism, there is no struggle for life, but rather life is lived for struggle. Pacifism is trafficking with the enemy. It's bad because life is permanent warfare. Okay. This, however, brings about an Armageddon complex. Since enemies have to be defeated, there must be a final battle, after which the movement will have control of the world. But such a final solution implies a further era of peace, a golden age, which contradicts the principle of permanent war. So, this one is not necessary. We don't necessarily see this as much in the Trump administration. Okay. There isn't really, and please correct me if you have an idea of where we could apply this. I don't think we could apply it too much. You don't need everything on this list to be present for it to be a fascist movement, but there isn't really this sense in the Trump administration of a final apocalyptic battle or the need to be at war all the time. We basically are at war most of the time. We have been for the last several presidents, what with drone strikes and such. But it's definitely not, I would not say that it is made worse under Trump. It is kind of business as usual. It's an interesting, it's one of those things that I don't see as much in Trumpism. So does anyone have I'm curious if anyone can think of an example. I can't off the top of my head. Yeah, since enemies have to be defeated, there must be a final battle. We definitely saw that for Hitler and fascism. Yeah, you might be right there, London. It could be that his sort of apocalyptic battle is between immigrants and native-born, I guess, Americans. All these terms are always so complicated and they've been so politicized. But yes, that could be. Yeah, scientific racism. Oh, yeah, don't even get me started with that. That is some horrific stuff. On a side note here, folks, when it comes to scientific racism, we had a eugenics movement in the United States where we actually, how do I say this? Sterilized a lot of people against their will because we viewed them as mentally inferior or racially inferior. And Hitler copied that and took it to Germany and used it for his own sterilization program. So America has been deathly guilty of that. Actually, as a matter of fact, I was doing research when I was in college on America's euthanasia program, or not euthanasia program, sorry, their sterilization program. And I was at a university, which I won't name, and I went into their archives to the section where they had documents related to a professor that had been there who had been massively promoting those things. And all the documents were gone. So when I asked the librarian, hey, where are these documents? She said, I don't know. Only the dean could have removed them. I don't know where they went. I'm not saying that they were hiding it. I don't know, but that certainly is interesting. Okay. Anyway. Okay. So let's go on here. Struggle for life. I will say there is a lot of that sense of life is lived for the struggle amongst the right wing here, right? Pick yourself up by the bootstraps. You know, get out there, go work and such. That's the only thing that should bring you joy is your work. That's the only reason you exist is your work. That is a big issue with our economic system as well. I mean, that's kind of the main issue, but it's heavily promoted as well. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Elitism is a typical aspect of any reactionary ideology insofar as it is fundamentally aristocratic. And aristocratic and militaristic elitism cruelly implies contempt for the weak. Yeah, we definitely see some contempt for the weak, don't we? I don't know why I whispered it, but and by the way, that is a subjective. What makes a person weak? Well, you can guess that the right wing has some ideas about what makes a person weak. And there's massive contempt for them. And this also dovetails into the idea of, hypermasculinity and things like that, which we'll get further on later in the list, that people who are effeminate are weak. Okay, that's that idea. Um, Weakness all around, right? Um, if you're not part of that sort of ruling class, the good white Christian Americans, you are weak. Okay. And by the way, in a capitalist mode of commune like we have, that typically means that people who have made a lot of money are automatically assumed to be the elite, the ones who are successful because they've made tons of money. Think Elon Musk. Okay. Um, Elon, a lot of times we view CEOs and wealthy business owners that as, oh, well, they're successful. They're the ones who are the elite. They have done the most success. Okay. Um, so there is that idea of an elite. Okay. I'm just going through some of the chats here again. Charles Davenport. Oh, yes. Bro moment. I applaud you. Most people do not know that name. Charles Davenport was sort of the father of the American eugenics movement. Very, very dark times in America. Maybe one time I'll do a stream on it. I have a ton of pictures and such. We literally used to you know what? I'll show you right now. We used to have these called Better Family or Fitter Family competitions where families would, I'll show you. Basically, what would happen is they would have competitions where families would get on stage and they would rank them by their fitness, as in how superior are they racially. Fitter, I think it's called Fitter Family competitions. Yep, here we go. So here we have a eugenics health exhibit. Let me see if I can find a good one here. So, yeah. Okay, here we go. So this is an image from a state fair. Okay, over here on the right. I know you can't probably see it very well. If I can maybe get it bigger for you. Here we go. Okay. This is at a state fair. And just like animals, there's judges going around rating the racial fitness of each of these women and their children, okay, to determine who will win because they're the most racially fit. Okay, this was a very common practice. They gave awards for it, so you could get like a golden medal or whatever if you were the fittest family. And you can imagine who was left out of this. There were never any people with dark skin. Okay, never anyone. Almost certainly never any Jewish people. Almost okay. You can tell what this was. All right. So that was a very common practice. So America not has kind of a very dark history with that. Yeah, I know, Sir Bartholomew. It gets rough. Um, okay. All right. So let's go on now. I know I'm again getting off track here. Let's go to finishing this up. Okay. All right. So aristocratic, right? In such a perspective, everybody is educated to become a hero. In every mythology, the hero is an exceptional being, but in fascist ideology, heroism is the norm. The cult of heroism is strictly linked with a cult of death. It is not by chance that a motto of Phalangists was Viva la muerte, which in English should be translated to as long live death. Okay. In non fascist societies, the lay public is told that death is unpleasant but must be faced with dignity. Believers are told that it is the painful way to reach a supernatural happiness. By contrast, the Euro-fascist hero craves a heroic death, advertises the best reward for a heroic life. The fascist hero is impatient to die. In his impatience, he more frequently sends other people to death. Okay, this uh, let's see here. This you don't see as much in Trump. Okay, now there is a part of this though that I think is pretty disturbing. There are a lot of people in this country, mainly evangelical Christians, who believe that the apocalypse will happen during their lifetime. And they think it's a good thing, okay? And they want to help bring it along. So we do kind of have a death culty thing going on where a lot of folks believe that the end of the world is nigh. And It's good that it's nigh, and we need to help it along to make it happen sooner. You could definitely refer to that as kind of a death culty thing. So there is some of that, and there's a lot of evangelicals in the Trump administration, but there isn't necessarily this obsession with death, like overall, as you might normally see in a fascist movement. Okay. Um, yeah. So I don't know if anyone has any other examples, but to me, this is still one of the positive things about our society generally right now is that at least people still don't want to die, right? If you get a situation where people are gladly going off to die for something, it's problematic, obviously. Okay. Uh, so here we go. Both permanent war and heroism are difficult games to play. The fascist transfers his will to sexual matters. This is the origin of machismo. Okay, here we go, which implies both disdain for women and intolerance and condemnation of non-standard sexual habits from chastity to homosexuality. Since even sex is a difficult game to play, the fascist hero tends to play with weapons. Doing so becomes an ersatz phallic exercise. Um, Okay. So thank you for the super chat, Bettina. Um, okay. So this one here, we I talked about this. One of the big yes, okay, bruh moment. Good job. Yes, Mussolini was very much a womanizer. So is Trump in a lot of ways. Hitler, on the other hand, not as much of a womanizer. I don't quote me on this, but he had something like 5 girlfriends, and I'm not joking, but I think about 4 of them committed suicide. Uh, I mean, wonder why. Okay. But regardless, yes. So fascists are obsessed with machismo, okay, masculinity, what they view as masculinity, uh, and expressing those masculine traits in a very exaggerated way. The idea of violence being very masculine. Um, and we've talked about this, right? There's a ton of masculinity based things going on right now that are kind of terrifying in terms of the real extreme masculinity, the sort of brute masculinity. Um, that is, there obviously masculinity is not set in stone. Different cultures have different concepts of masculinity. So, but fascists don't believe that. They believe that there's only one kind of masculinity. Okay. Um, and they are very derogatory towards women. Okay. As a matter of fact, in Nazi Germany, one of the issues that they had, this was sort of a minor issue in terms of the overall war effort, but the Nazis were so obsessed with women being basically baby producing machines. At some point on stream, I have a box full of things that my grandfather captured when he was fighting the Nazis in Europe. And he captured this little medal, this little German medal that would be given to women who had a certain number of children, because to the Nazis, that's the highest thing a woman can do is give birth, okay, be a baby making machine for the state. One of the issues they had was that when the war started, they weren't big fans of letting women work in factories. In America at the time, we had no problem letting women go and swamp into the factories to work. And that was a major inefficiency because in Germany, because they were uh, they had such a distorted view of women. Okay. Um, and we see that today. Okay. And obviously the intolerance and condemnation of non-standard sexual habits, transgender people, gay people, anyone who doesn't look the way you would expect. Yeah. Okay. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So I could go on about this forever. I think it's super interesting how how masculinity and such and gender and such plays out under fascism. Okay. Fascism is based upon selective populism, okay, a qualitative populism. One might say, in a democracy, the citizens have individual rights, but the citizens in their entirety have a political impact only from a quantitative point of view. One follows the decisions of the majority. For fascism, however, individuals as individuals have no rights, and the people is conceived as a quality, a monolithic entity expressing the common will. Okay, this is 100% true about fascism. Fascism does not care about the individual. It's all about the state and the collective as a single entity, like an organism. So, you know, I don't care about this individual or that individual. I care about the nation. It is an organism. The people that make up that organism are just body parts to that organism. Individuals don't matter. The state is all that matters. You can definitely see some of that going on. It's a qualitative populism that, and you basically say that that state has certain qualities. Okay. The MAGA movement and right wingers will oftentimes, um, oh, yes, the Lebensborn program. Quite disturbing. So, let me just, I know I'm getting off track here again, but the Lebensborn program, basically in Nazi Germany, SS officers would, well, let me start this over. They would have children, okay, teenagers, go to these camps, these like not those kind of camps, but like summer camps, kind of like what you would do for Boy Scouts or something. And they would make the boys and the girls tent together. I think we know where I'm going with this, okay? And the result of this was that there'd be a bunch of babies produced, and they would always make sure that these uh, pairings of males and females would be, you know, blonde hair, blue eyes. They would do family background checks to make sure they were racially pure, whatever that means. And it would produce a lot of babies. And then those babies would often be raised by members of the SS to create a better race of Germans. Okay, so that's the Lebensborn program. It's very gross. Okay, so moving on. Uh, oh, wait, let me check first. How many super chats do we got? Has anyone been keeping track since I can't anymore? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we probably have more than that. 9. Oh, we have 9. Okay. We just need one more. All right. So, okay, how old were the children? That is a good question. I cannot recall off the top of my head. They were teenagers. They were not like you know, they weren't small children. But I guess from my perspective as an American, Europe has actually slightly different age limits when it comes to reaching the age of adulthood. But from as I recall, they were sort of child aged. Um, okay, so let's take a look here now. Okay, so next one here. Um, so yeah, there's a sort of a common will. All right, uh, because of its qualitative populism, fascism must be against rotten parliamentary governments. You see that every single time. You're seeing it now. Um, Trump is trying to sort of make voting more difficult. He's trying to mess with our voting system. There's constant talk about, you know, how Congress is failing. As a matter of fact, the United States has very low approval ratings for Congress, and this goes back to what I was saying: is that okay. There's the last super chat. All right. Well, if we got to do it, we got to do it. So 123 Rock fan, have you seen the movie Civil War from last year? Yes, I did. That's nightmare fuel for you. I do wish they would have been a bit more political with it. What I mean is they were kind of tried to be sort of neutral in how they presented it. But yeah, it was a good movie. Okay, here we go. Let me get this here hat. All right. Geez, if any of my students see this, it's going to be nothing but comedic remarks for the rest of the year. All right, let's do it. Okay, there you go, you traitors. All right, there we go. How dare you? I'm so offended. Okay. Anyway, so all right. So a jester in the house. Yeah. Uh, remember what I said about jesters? I love jesters historically. I think I told you why, right? Because the jesters were the ones who could make fun of the king. They were the ones, hey, thank you for the next super chat. I don't know if you have an opinion. I was curious if you had an opinion on the theory that Stalin was a fascist, even if they call themselves communists. Okay, this is an extreme great question, Big Braden. This is an extremely you've had a lot of good questions today. This is a complex question. It's still debated. There is something called horseshoe theory. I don't know if I buy it, but the idea is that the political spectrum is not just straight left to right, okay? That it kind of curves around like a horseshoe. So as you're near the ends of the political spectrum, they start looking like each other. So fascism would look like communism. I don't really buy that. It's possible. Uh, Stalin was absolutely authoritarian, one of the worst authoritarians in history. Okay, um, but yeah, so you could say he was similar to that, but fascism itself is sort of it has more ideology parts to it that Stalin did not have. Okay, he was absolutely an authoritarian. I would not call him a fascist, but they do operate in a similar way, right? They both care deeply about the state. They both suppress political opponents, use propaganda. Um, so there is a lot of similarities, and experts still debate this. That's kind of why I'm not giving you a solid response. There's actually a great book. It's called The Dictators. And it's a historical monograph, but it's a comparison of Hitler and Stalin. I recommend you read it if you're interested. Yeah, he did do. You're right, bruh moment. He did do some ethnic cleansing as well, and that's the thing. This is where it gets confusing. Does the ideology matter, or do just the actions matter? Because yeah, if you look at actions, the fascists and the communists, or the Stalin and Hitler, were very, very similar. Okay, ideologically, though, they were quite different, and so this is where the debate comes in. Um, Personally, in the end, I don't. They're definitely both authoritarian, and to me, uh, honestly, Stalin probably just as bad as Hitler. Okay, that do I think he's a fascist? No, because it's ideologically different, but definitely mass murderer. Um, yeah. Okay. So, great question though. All right. Okay. So, let's go on here. All right. Oh, geez, look at this. Look at this mess. Ugh. All right. Oh yes. Oh, let me just quickly finish saying. So, court jesters, oops, right, were when they were in a king's court, they were often the only ones allowed to criticize the king. Now, this did not happen everywhere, but in some places they would be allowed to criticize the king. Sometimes they would be very close friends with the king, and sometimes they would even be licensed with a little license that basically says I can say what I want to the king and he can't kill me or imprison me. Okay, so jesters oftentimes were the only ones who could criticize the king, and they got away with it because they were dressed like this. They looked like they were silly kind of lunatics and they were fools. So the king could sort of laugh off any sort of criticism he or she was getting by saying, oh, well, that's just the fool, but also listening to what they said. Okay. So anyway, I do love jesters. Okay. So, so let's go on here. Um, the name of the book, that would be The Dictators. And It's a good book. It's a very thick book, but it's a very good book. They go, yeah, through each of the lives of Hitler and Stalin. Okay, like in South Park. Okay, so here we go. We have talked about fascism being against rotten parliamentary systems. That's what they call it. Okay. Lastly, here, new fascism speaks news speak. I hope to God some of your teachers had you read 1984 when you were in school. Fantastic book, one of my favorite. There is okay. So Newspeak was invented by Orwell in 1984 as the official language of English socialism. So that was this fictional society in 1984. All Nazi or fascist school books made use an impoverished vocabulary and elementary syntax in order to limit the instruments for complex and critical reasoning. This is very important, okay? We have seen a degradation of the English language under Trump like none I've ever seen before. Just go through his texts. I mean, his his X's, his tweets, okay? The language is being destroyed. I'm not exaggerating. And you often see that under fascist regimes, under authoritarian regimes. You see that in Putin's Russia, okay? You see language being degraded to where words don't mean anything anymore. And that makes it very hard to actually identifying people or identifying things that are happening if you don't have a language for it. Let me give you an example. Fake news. What does that mean anymore? It used to have a legitimate meaning, right? Literally news that is fake. It was articles put online that were generated, that are just completely made up. But but in reality now, what does it mean? It keeps being it's thrown around. Trump uses the phrase fake news for things he just disagrees with. So there's one example. I'm sure you could think of others. I'm having a mind blank right now, but there definitely are others. So there's the fake news, the press. I want to say press, but journalist. That word is being sort of distorted in some ways. In the press room, in the press briefing room in Trump's White House, they've opened up a seat to what they say new press or new media, and a lot of times the person in that seat has no experience being a journalist, is not someone who actually knows much about the state of the world, but they present them as being a member of the press and conflate the term. Okay. Yeah, and you're right, Grace. Trump does have a massively impoverished vocabulary. You can imagine the English teachers I know, and I've taught English too. Nothing will get them to pull their hair out more than to make them read a Trump tweet. I had a friend of mine who was an English teacher who she would print them off and she would get a red pen just to make herself feel better and like add commas, like why is this capitalized? What does this mean? Okay, so yeah, very impoverished vocabulary. And this is made worse, folks, by the fact that the English attainment level of a lot of our students that are graduating is greatly diminished. People younger students and stuff are having trouble reading, and it's not getting fixed. This started partially during COVID. So the English language is being degraded. Okay. And that makes it very hard to identify things that are happening and to put words on them. Here's an example. What about the word democracy? What does it mean anymore? And I know that I love democracy, but we've set it up to where we call the United States a democracy, but in practice, it hasn't been working that way for a while. And so it becomes hard to determine, well, then what's an actual democracy? Okay, I mean, there are all these words that are just being degraded, and it's very sad to see. Yes, yeah, solar. I'm not even going to say nuclear because I have my little bit of an accent there. Yeah, he can't speak full sentences. Oh, here's another one. Thank you for the other super chat. Let's hear what it says here. Why does Trump discredit mainstreamdom newsrooms so heavily when they are already so complicit? Hey, you got me. Okay. We that's a good question. Well, first of all, okay, this is another very complicated issue. He discredits them because they report on him and they report what he does. And what he does is awful and is makes people very angry. He doesn't like that. He doesn't like them to report on what he's doing. At the same time, there is folks, and I'm not defending Trump, there is definitely a bias in mainstream media against Trump. That's not to say they're wrong, but if you go on to like CNN or wherever, you know what? Let me show you an example. This enraged me when I saw it today. Let me show you this. It enraged me because, let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Okay, see this clip. I was watching this earlier. I'm so glad I left it up. Here is a clip from CNN, okay? And on CNN, mainstream news source, they don't like Trump. I understand, okay? I totally get it, right? I don't like Trump either. But then you do something like this. So let's see. This is a segment where they're actually going to have someone on to talk about Trump's moving of the nuclear submarines. Okay, so let's see who they have on, and if you know who it is, shout it out in the chat. Okay, it might appear on the screen, so you might know anyway.
Tonight, President Trump is issuing a rare threat of nuclear escalation against Russia, saying that he's ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be repositioned in response to, quote, provocative statements made by Russia's former president, Dmitry Medvedev.
He was talking about nuclear. When you talk about nuclear, we have to be prepared, and we're totally prepared.
Trump first made this announcement online, saying this step was just in case Medvedev's foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that. It was not immediately clear if Trump was referring to subs with nuclear weapon capabilities or merely nuclear-powered subs. Of course, the current deputy chairman of the Russia Security Council and former president had made a reference on Thursday to Russia's Soviet-era system capable of launching retaliatory nuclear strikes after Trump told him to, quote, watch his words. The two have been trading verbal attacks since Monday when Trump slashed his deadline for Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine. There's been no sign that Putin is listening. However, last night you saw Russia launching its deadliest single attack on Ukraine's capital this year, killing at least 31 people after striking Russia's nuclear. Have you here because obviously the former president.
Okay, so I moved it forward a bit because I wanted to get to the point. Do we know who this is? This gentleman on the right? Anyone have a guess? Anyone know who that is? I'll give a few seconds. Yeah, I know I can't pronounce Medvedev. Yes, thank you, 123 rock fan, Michael Bolton. Now, this is who dug this. Braden, you're told right. Who dug this Confederate soldier out of the coffin? Okay, Michael Bolton worked for Trump during the first term. He is a neoconservative. He is a guy who was massively in support of the Iraq War. This is a guy who never has seen a war he didn't drool over, okay? He loves war, okay? He can't get enough of it. He wants to bomb Iran, bomb Iraq, he wants to bomb anything that moves, okay? Like it's strange. It's probably something psychological going on there. And CNN had him on, and they do quite frequently. He's a contributor there, because he doesn't like Trump. Now, yeah, I agree with him. I don't like Trump. But do we know why John Bolton doesn't like Trump? Because Trump, first of all, fired John Bolton. He was either fired or he resigned. I can't quite remember. Because he was, first of all, he was criticizing Trump a little bit, but also because he was way too much of a warmonger, okay? He was a neoconservative. Trump wasn't, and I'm not defending Trump's foreign policy, but Trump wasn't a big fan of the things that John Bolton was doing. And so he removed Bolton from the White House. And you can imagine since then, Bolton has gone on a media spree bashing Trump and things like that. Hey, no harm, no foul. I totally agree with him. Hey, bash Trump all you want. But let's not pretend he's doing this because he has a legitimate concern about Trump as a president. He's doing it because he's mad and he's in his fifis. And because CNN loves people from the elite, okay, loves these people that have been in office before, they have him on because they know he's going to bash Trump. Again, I totally understand bashing Trump, but you can imagine how if MAGA were to watch this, they would see John Bolton, because a lot of them aren't fans of neoconservatives. They'd be like, oh, look at CNN. They have John Bolton on. Okay. I know I feel that way. And John Bolton goes on to, bash what Trump is doing with nuclear submarines and things like that, which, hey, again, yes, I agree. But you can see that he's not a pleasant guy. Okay. So yes, why Trump doesn't like the mainstream media. One, yes, they are a bit biased against him, partially understandably. Two, they report the truth on him. Not always. There were some things they've gotten wrong. And again, I'm not a big fan of these big media sources, but you can imagine that's one of the things Trump doesn't like. They're also very pro-Democratic Party, most of them, except Fox. That's a complete exception. That's like state TV 101. But anyway, yeah. So that's one way you could look at this. Okay, that I'm way oversimplifying this, but that is an example of why we might not want to. Why Trump might not like Fox News or CNN. Okay. All right. Let's go back here to fascism. I think we finished this here. Yeah, newspeak. So again, the degradation of the language and things like that. Okay. All right. So we've actually finished up the fascism portion of this video. Well, I'm always talking about fascism, but we finished up the reading of those parts. I'm going to go through the chats here. Let's take a look if I missed anyone. Publicly admit moving to nuclear. Yeah, hey, London, I feel you there. Like I was saying earlier in the stream, those nuclear submarines are meant to be secret. Their location is. So it is utterly moronic to announce that you're moving the nuclear submarines to within the vicinity of Russia. But hey, what can we expect, right? Thank you, Kayla.